Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the show wearefree.tv, the show of the people, by the people, for the people, where we interview different people from around the world about unusual subjects, anything from alternative medicine, alternative science, channeling, aliens, quantum physics, fifth dimension, raising of the frequency, the age of Aquarius, the age of femininity, the age of light, angels, you name it. This is the place to learn about these kind of things. And we are also very grateful to all of you who have donated to us. We depend on your donations to remain an independent channel. And the bank details are mentioned up here for anyone who wishes to donate. That will be highly appreciated. Thank you very much. Also, you are also advised or encouraged to join our Telegram group, which is No Censorship TV. All one word, no dots, no spaces. That's our Telegram group. And that's where we upload links to all of our interviews as and when they are released, published. And also we have a website, which is wearefree.tv. You're welcome to go there, click on English on the top left corner, and then you can click on Join Us and send us your email, and then you'll join our mailing list and also be notified by email whenever an English interview is uploaded. So thank you very much for all that. And today, our guest is the one and only Mr. Corey Goode, and he's an alien experiencer, a secret space program insider, a film producer and director. The name of the interview is Government Disclosures, What Does It Mean? A conversation about ET contactees, military abduction programs, secret space program, UFOs, and more. So, hello there, Corey. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm brilliant. Enjoying the corona and everything that it entails in terms of someone who's been awake for almost 20 years. It's like, I told you. Now everybody is waking up to all these things that we've been shouting about for years. But better later than never. And I'm very optimistic, although I live in Israel and most people are vaccinated, and apparently the vaccinated are now giving it to the unvaccinated, and there's all kind of weird stuff happening, but I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just having fun and doing my thing.
That's all you can do. We're living in bizarro world now. Nothing makes sense. Everyone has gone crazy.
Yeah. I mean, how are you? Before we get there, maybe you could just kind of give us a bit of an introduction about yourself. Who are you? What are you? Where are you coming from? Where are you going? What's your life purpose?
Yeah, I worked within secret space programs early in my life and had a lot of information that would connect a lot of dots in ufology and esoterics. And I finally came forward in 2015 in a big way publicly, and it became like a sensation. It was it became, you had your critics and the people that loved it. It was an amazing time in ufology. But I was also having interaction with higher density beings, and they were showing me things that were going to happen. And it was end time sort of stuff. Some of the people getting crazier and crazier, the end time madness, they were showing me that there were energies, cosmic energies that were causing this. And it was some sort of like, they likened it to a Christ consciousness that was coming here and forcing everybody to judge themselves, which is a little bit scarier than being judged by God, having to judge yourself.
Why is it scarier?
Well, I mean, look how we see ourselves, when we look in the mirrors, people are very critical of themselves. I would much rather have a loving being God, judge me than judge myself, because we're hard on ourselves. But it's sort of that type of thing. It's the energy is causing everybody's, traumas and unresolved issues to come up, and people are acting out, and it's going to get worse and worse. And then they showed me, and I spoke about this 5 years ago. It's all documented, about the volcanoes. We're going to start picking up because the mantle is heating up because of these cosmic energies. And it was going to lead up to a solar event, what we call a micronova. And I spoke about this before all the scientific papers started coming out about it. And they showed that, we're at the time to where another one of those is due. So I've been trying to get that information. It sounds kind of doomy and gloomy, but it's really not. In this process, there's a huge ascension of consciousness in mankind, which is greatly needed. Where our consciousness is sick on this planet, and it's going to give us a boost in that regard.
Okay, so you say that you were communicating with aliens. So who? The reptilians, the draconians,
in the space program, in the space program, I was an intuitive empath, that they had us interface with actual ETs during that time, whether they be interrogating one or communicating with one. As far as later on, these were higher density beings. I didn't recognize them as any type of ET from, the records. And they're higher density beings that represented themselves as guardians that came in at the end of every age to help prepare the energies and the mass consciousness for what was about to occur.
So are you a channeler?
No, these are physical interactions and dream interactions. There are times to where I am bringing information when, like, I'm doing Q&As, that it's almost like channeling, but it's not. But this is, they were communicating with me in dreams and physical appearances.
Wow, scary.
Yeah, it's more overwhelming. It challenges everything. If you have access to these certain information in the space program, you have a pretty open mind about what's going on out there. But then when you have beings that are like our ancestors would have called them angels, like these higher density beings appearing, it's overwhelming.
Like, when was the first time you actually encountered one of them, and how did it feel?
Well, around 2011, they started approaching me in dreams, and these were the blue avians. They and in around 2013, they really blossomed out from dreams, and it started turning into physical contact. They started first just kind of appearing like observers in dreams, not really drawing much attention to themselves, but there was a blue avian being, so you would see it, but you would have no idea why it was there. In the dream, in like you're normally having a dream, and all of a sudden they would appear there like they were observing. That's how they kind of first started easing their way into my consciousness.
Yeah.
And from what I'm told, these positive, higher density beings and ETs, they live by this cosmic law that they're not really supposed to openly approach us. What they do is they're higher spiritual beings, the positive ones. And what they'll do is they'll kind of connect with your higher self, and your higher self will decide what type of interaction you're ready for. Because some human beings, if you have an ET appear or a higher density being appear, you start to say, wow, I must be special. And then Christ complex develops, all of the deficiencies in the human mind.
Egoic.
The ego.
Yeah.
So they have to approach you in a certain way, and they negotiate it with you. The positive beings, they kind of negotiate with you in your dream state and your higher self before they appear.
And then they appear physically in reality and not in dreams?
That's if your personality type can handle it.
And does yours? How about your personality? Can it handle it?
It has so far.
So tell us about it.
Well, what do you want to know?
I want to know, so you explained very precisely about the dreams, and if you could now tell us about the first time they appeared in front of your eyes, while you were brushing your teeth or while you were driving your car, suddenly you look to your right, my God, there's an alien next to me, or what? Is that how it was? No.
No, they've appeared in my house.
Yep.
Which I was, of course, shocked, but they had prepared me first.
Yeah.
And then they were then taking me up to a blue sphere. They would send a blue sphere that would pick me up and take me to their location.
Whenever I talk to people like that, it's like you talk about it as if, oh yeah, I went down the shops and I got a sandwich and a can of beer, and I kind of, had it for lunch.
Yeah,
what?
something
I would say, I met an alien. You won't believe it. They showed me this blue sphere, and I was like shocked. And then I just that's how I would tell it. But maybe that's why they don't contact me, because I'm not ready.
Well, I mean, I went through a whole process. My wife, she would not have been able to handle this information. She grew up in a real conservative, family in Missouri, and she would have freaked out. But weirdly, she was reading a book about personality types and that sort of thing, and she got this download about, we are one, and just a big loving download with a lot of information. And this was right before I started coming out with the information. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, I don't know if I would have been able to, because, some in my family who are very conservative are not happy, with me talking about aliens, because they think all aliens are demons.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. No.
Aren't they?
Well, it depends on your perspective. 2,000 years ago, if a higher density being or an ET visited a person that didn't have the vernacular understanding we have now of space and time, well, they're going to call it an angel or a demon.
I see. So they never were demons, the aliens. They were just what they are, the ETs. Only they used to be considered as demons, and some people still hold that idea.
Well, there's a little bit of truth in that. Some of these beings, they cause misery on the earth so they can get loose from us. So there is a spiritual component to this.
I mean, what about the idea that that we are being? It's not the Illuminati or the cabal. It's even higher than that. It's like aliens of some sort that actually prey on our energies, and we are like food for them. And they need us to be in a low vibration of fear so they could feed off it. Is that true?
No, that is absolutely true.
So that sounds pretty demonic to me.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it is. It's just, like I said, there's a spiritual component to it, and there is truth about it being, there's a demonic component and an alien component. There's also all of these interdimensional negative beings that these negative ETs learn to manipulate, and they've taught humans how to manipulate through different magic and different things that also reap havoc spiritually, on humanity. So there's a lot of layers to this onion.
I see. So let's look at it from the macro perspective and the micro. So the macro, what do they want? I mean, I know there's the good aliens, the bad aliens, the ones, the Pleiadians and the Acturians and Andromedans, who are like the good guys helping us. What is the council? What is it called? I forgot this. Cosmic Council?
Federation.
Sorry?
Yeah, there's a lot of different federations.
The Galactic Federation are the good guys, and then the bad guys, are the Draconians and the Reptilians, and the Greys are like, medium evil. So what's going on? Can you please straighten it all out?
Yeah, I guess it depends on, a lot of them consider themselves amoral. They don't consider what they're doing here evil. They consider this a giant experiment that they've been taking part in for millennia. They've been not only tinkering with our genetics, they've also been playing with our religions and controlling our consciousness, because as you develop technologically, you also need to catch up spiritually, to really be in balance and not destroy yourself as a civilization. So the positive beings, they're wanting us to ascend to a next level. I'm not talking about flying up in the sky when I talk about ascend. I talk about the next level of consciousness. They want that for us because a lot of them are karmically tied to us, and they selfishly have a need for us to go up to the next level so they can. The negative beings are just feeding off of us, trying to keep us down on a lower level to where they can feed off of our loosh and use this prison planet for resources. Humans are a resource, sadly, to these beings as well. So the negative beings are skirting cosmic law by interacting with Illuminati or Cabal types, having them control the planet, and us living under the system and tacitly agreeing to it is kind of how it all works. If that's in a nutshell.
It makes perfect sense because, growing up, I always it seemed to me that something is very wrong. How people say, well, man is evil, in its core, and people are evil and people are bad, and just look at the system, with the banking system and the money and competition and all that. And I used to ask myself, well, surely that's not the best that humanity could have achieved in 50,000 years. And the only way, the only legal explanation is that we're being prevented from being who we could be.
Well, just think about it. In your family, often there's generational traumas that get passed down. Traumas with money, traumas with, either physical abuse, mental abuse, all these different things. And then they get repeated and passed down. There is also a collective trauma that humanity has that it keeps perpetuating, and these beings are causing it and manipulating it. And what we need to do is be able to figure out the mechanism and find out how to, change our society in a way to where we start each generation having less trauma and more healthy people, and that's what's going to happen once we have this ascension in consciousness, because we're all going to be connected in a way that we don't understand right now. It'll be very confusing in the beginning, but we'll all relate to each other, we'll feel each other, and that's when things, will begin to change.
And when is that going to happen?
That's around the time of this solar event, which scientists now are predicting that it could happen anywhere from 2024 to around 3033, I think.
And what should we expect?
It has to do with the solar cycles.
Okay. So what should we expect to see in the sky? 3 suns? As in SUN?
No, I think if you go to Suspicious Observers, it's a YouTube channel, he has a whole series on what is expected. And basically, in a nutshell, they're finding out all the stars in our local stellar neighborhood have a pulse. And some of them have a micronova every couple hundred years, every 1,000 years. And then there's a larger one. It's a cycle. And it has to do with our star cluster going into the galactic plane where there's more energy. I got off track. What was I?
What's going to happen when the solar flare occurs? What should we see?
Yeah, we are due now for one of the major micronovas, and there'll be a mass coronal ejection around the full circumference of the sun. It'll shoot off the coronal shell, lots of debris. That's most likely what happened during the time of the dinosaurs, the young Adrias and all of that, where they found impacts but no real meteors. It's the debris from the sun. And then the Earth is expected to shift its axis and then come back as it does every time. And that was going to cause flooding, tidal waves, a lot of destruction, but not. It looks like it could be bad, but not as bad as depicted in Suspicious Observers. Some of the animations they show are a little.
Better build an ark.
Well, this is where that whole story came from, isn't it?
Yeah.
Back
Or maybe move to the mountains, move to the Golan Heights. And
yeah, I mean, that gives you elevation for sure, and a lot of people, as a matter of fact, in that series on that YouTube channel, there's videos on safe zones, where mountain could block the possible tidal waves and high winds and that sort of thing. And, a lot of people, are starting to prepare for that type of thing. Governments have been preparing for decades for this. They know about it. NASA was basically a big ruse. The trip to the moon was a big ruse. Our secret space programs had already been there. And on the backside of the moon, we discovered these little glass beads, green beads and orange beads. And that was being discovered in other places too, through the secret space program. And they did, through testing, they figured out it was ejected from the sun. And this proved all of their hidden texts about what happens at the end of an age. They knew there was going to be a solar event. They were able to trace back. They knew it was about to happen. But they needed more money and infrastructure to prepare. So how do you tell the governments this thing is coming without telling them you have a secret space program and a whole breakaway civilization? You have a conventional spaceship go up, say they're doing one thing, gather information, bring it back down, and then approach all of the nations and say, listen, we have proof that a solar event is going to occur. Give us 1 or 2% of your GDP, and we'll build deep underground bases, tunnel systems. And that's what all of that infrastructure that you hear about, deep underground bases and these tunnel systems, it all has to do with this preservation of species thing that they sold to all of the countries. And all the countries keep this top secret, and they're all contributing.
And it's true? This. You think it's true?
And yeah.
So we're doomed. So they don't need to do depopulation with Agenda 2130 because the sun's going to do it for them.
Well, it's not going to kill everyone and destroy everything. It's going to destroy one thing that it is going to take down is the electric grids and all of electricity. People are going to have to go back to the old way of living, and people will die of disease and starvation, and that kind of thing is going to happen. It happened. I mean, it sounds horrible, but they've proven that this happens every 12,000 years. And we're due for it. So they're preparing, they're taking it seriously, and they want to keep us blissfully ignorant.
So they, as in the ruling elite, they will escape underground while we are left to burn. And are you making any preparations personally?
Yeah, absolutely. We're and there are a number of people that are coming to the Colorado area. Groups that are preparing, and yeah, we have it all designed and drawn up, but right now we're waiting, to find the correct property and build kind of a survival homestead. Not anything over the top like you might imagine, like some sort of giant fort or anything, but just something that's smart and ready for what looks like is coming.
So could you just give us a few of the attributes of this smart living quarters or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to learn how to live off the grid and with nature in a way that most people are completely unfamiliar with now. We're actually, we're doing videos on our ascensionworks.tv platform right now. People don't know how to can, they don't know how to plant something and grow it and then harvest it. People are going to have to learn how to do all of that, and that's what this land is going to be about. It's going to have sturdy shelters and all of that, but it's mostly going to be designed around living completely off the grid.
Oh, I thought you meant like it's going to be underground or something, like the rich are doing. Because how are you going to avoid, the actual event and its repercussions?
The thing is, I don't think a whole lot of the underground bases are going to survive what is coming, because what they're discussing is that, the entire crust could slide over the mantle a little bit. And there's something during massive earthquakes called liquefaction. And that's when solid ground vibrates so quickly that it becomes like a liquid. And you'll have buildings that just sink down into, solid ground, So I think that, I don't know if it's going to play out as well as they think, that, they're not going to be able to come back out and reestablish things like they think. There's going to be a lot more humans that survive than, they're thinking and preparing for the worst case scenario. And from, what we're seeing in the geological record, it's not as bad as they were given these people that were the leaders of all these other countries, these horrible stories, this scary, horrible, dreadful story about what's going to happen as a sales tactic. Give us 2% of your GDP to build all of this. But it's, according to the geological record, it's not as bad as some in even the scientific community have kind of.
So what are the basic things? Like, stay away from the coastal areas. Yeah, go as high as what? How many hundreds of meters up a mountain?
I think mainly it has to do with being on the opposite side of certain barriers, mountain barriers, because the water could get, up to, like, let's say if it's 1,000 feet and it's washing across the west coast of the United States. If you're on the east side of the Continental Divide, that's going to provide quite a bit of protection from something like that. And there's a few places that are laid out that are that the government had identified as safe zones, and usually they've built a lot of their military bases. Colorado Springs, a lot of their bases are built in areas that they know are survivable of for this type of an event.
I see. Now, did we talk about what is an ET contactee?
Yeah, ET contactee are people that are interfacing with an ET, either physically. A lot of them are people that are contactees, or also abductees. People that are abducted and are a part of this, genetic program. Unfortunately, they're constantly monitoring our genetics. Over time, I had read in documents when I was in the programs that they highly suspected that ETs had used viruses to deliver changes to our genetics and to kill off the weak among us throughout the eons. So, contactees, there have been contactees as long as there have pretty much been people
and
on this planet.
Do they necessarily need to be abductees as well?
No, some are contacted by positive beings, and they're giving them information about how to cultivate land, do different technologies, give them spiritual ideas.
Yep.
And then you have some of the negative ones, or the amoral ones, as they consider themselves, that come down and without emotion, do their exams on us, wipe our memory, put us back, and then move on, to the next tagged animal that they have to study.
Okay. So do you know what is a profile of a good or valuable abductee or contactee for the aliens? I mean, why am I not an abductee or a contactee? What's wrong with me? God damn it.
Well, I don't know. Go within and ask your higher self, maybe how would you react if, you started having this experience? A lot of people who are not awake at all, if they started having these experiences, they're going to think they're schizophrenic. They're going to they're going to go tell their doctor, and their doctor's going to think they're schizophrenic. So it's, aliens, no one wants to touch that. The positive beings are always going to approach you very gently and if they decide to reveal themselves openly to you physically, it's going to be a very gentle process. The amoral or the negative beings, they really don't care, because they're going to wipe your memory and stick you back and leave and not even really worry about what type of trauma you may have to deal with.
Okay. Well, hopefully they won't be contacting me. And maybe you could tell us about the military abduction program. My God, or programs. There's more than one.
Oh, there's a lot of them. The military abduction programs, they have a whole group that is just a reabduction group that they monitor humans that are being abducted by ETs. And then after the ET leaves, they fly down and they reabduct the people and interrogate them, and then remove the memories, but in a lot messier way with chemicals and that sort of thing than the ETs did. And it causes a lot of problems for some of the contactees, because the humans come in and undo the real clean method that the ETs have of erasing our memories. They come in, and the reabduction groups come in, and they kind of make it's a messier process. And then you have...
Sorry, the ETs erase, and then the humans come and reinstate the erased memory? It's like...
Well, so what you'll learn is that the higher self is connected to this cosmic web, Akashic records, whatever you want to call them. All of your experiences go there as well. Otherwise, how would people with past life memories have them? It's not in your brain cells. How can you remember something that's not in your brain cell? Right? Well, if they remove those memories, it can back up. It can come back from the cloud. It's almost like the cloud. And they're able to put you through a chemical hypnosis type process that accesses that information, brings it down, and then they have to erase it in their way, and it's done through chemicals and electronics, and it's real messy.
Yeah, clear. Makes sense. What can I say? And so that's the military abduction program. Now, what about the blue aliens?
That's part of it.
Part of it. So tell me more.
Yeah, there are military groups that were looking for children of a certain age that were showing up in testing with having certain abilities. They were observing these children and then bringing them into special programs. A lot of kids, that are doing these. I can't remember kind of what they call them now. They're like for kids that are special. They're highly intelligent. They kind of take them out of regular school and take them out on field trips and to speak with scientists and that sort of thing to really stimulate their higher abilities. Well, this was very similar, but they were taking people, children, and giving them injections. There was electroshock therapy given, all different types of ways to try to create, as these kids are growing up, assets to do different things.
Such as?
They have this one group that is used on the earth, children that are raised up that are, if they can read people, and they're very manipulative, and they're really good at just manipulating people. They take these people and they highly train them into becoming pet personality metamorphs, they're called. And these are people, they can walk into a room, glance at you, read you, and come up to you, speak in a certain accent, with no background information. It's bizarre. And they can come in and totally work you and manipulate you without you even realizing what's going on until much, much later. And they have all different types of assets that they build up. That's just an example.
Anything else they do in this fabulous program of theirs?
Lots of things. Crazy training. Depends on what you're going to be used for. As an intuitive empath, they did a lot of virtual reality type of training, and started easing us into actually seeing real ETs and then interfacing with the ETs. And they would have 3 intuitive empaths present if they were to ever interrogate these ETs. So all 3 of us could read the ET while they were interrogating or interacting.
So how do you know all this? Because
I was a part of the program.
yeah, and
Yeah.
how did you get involved with the program?
Well, when I was around 6 years old, I popped up on testing. They were just starting the standardized testing, and they were developing it in Texas. And our school was one of the schools that we were doing the standardized testing in. I popped up through the testing, and apparently, some of my family had been involved in after World War II with some genetic experiments that were going on different families in these white coat type projects. But I was brought in. They told my parents I was going to be brought into this extracurricular program, and I was brought in. And between 1 and 3 times a week, I'd be driven to Carswell Air Force Base. I would go through all sorts of crazy training. At the end, they would give us injections, put us in front of a big movie screen, play one of those old projectors. We would have headphones.
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, those old projectors. And then they would show us a scene of a museum, of someone walking through a museum, getting a tour. And we're under suggestion with the injections and all of that. And we go home and your parents say, "What did you do today?" And we're like, "Oh, the Fort Worth Museum. Yeah, I saw this, and it becomes a screen memory." So yeah, they did that all the way up through when I was 17 years old.
But what were you doing to you? What do you think they were doing to you? Because you obviously didn't remember. They were implanting the memories, but what were they doing with you?
Well, they were taking us and doing all sorts of training, like I was discussing. They did a lot of, they didn't have, see, back then, Carswell Air Force Base was like over an hour from where I lived. So we had to travel there. We would have just a few hours for them to do training or testing, and then administer these drugs, do the screen memory, push all sorts of juice and water through us to get it out of our system and back to normal and back to school for our parents to pick us up.
And so what was the purpose of this? What were they hoping to achieve at the end with all this? They were training you, so they obviously wanted to use you. So when you grew up, did they use you? Did they say, okay, now you need to join this force, you'll get 150 grand a year, and this is your job now for the government?
No, it was never a paid type of thing. What they did is, until I was in this program until I was just before I turned 17, and then I was told that I had completed my training and I was being drafted into the secret space program.
Yeah.
And then I was brought into this program, and they said, "You're going to be in this program for 20 years." And I was freaking out. I was a kid, and they said, "But at the end of the 20 years, because of the technology we have, we can age regress you through pharmaceutical means back to this age and then insert you back into the timeline."
And you believe
agreement. I didn't. Well, at this point, why wouldn't I?
Okay.
With everything that I do.
So, did you go through the 20 years?
I did. Yeah, I went through the 20 years. The first nearly year I spent in this program where they interrogate ETs that they find on the Earth or that come into our solar system and have nefarious purposes or doing negative things. So they had me in that for the first 10 months or so, and then I was stationed on a research vessel, and I worked with mainly scientists and engineers throughout that time period.
So they feed you and they housed you and everything for 20 years without giving you a salary? So it's almost like a prison kind of program. What? It was for me, but it was mostly military involved, and they were very proud, very serious people. There were people that were in the military, had been, and scientists and, high up scientists that were approached and said, "Look, you're the elite of the elite. We're fighting this giant cosmic battle to, preserve humanity, and they draft them into it. But during that 20 years, you don't get paid because you're basically in another time reference.
and they put you back around the same time they took you. So I mean, they don't owe you any back pay, and you
But
don't.
you're
You don't
older.
get.
So did they really regress you age-wise?
Yes. Yeah. They have had this technology for decades.
So hang on. So you were 37 when you left, and then they made you 20 again. Yeah.
17.
They made you 17 again. Sorry, and reinserted you and sent you back in time.
Yeah.
So really, the whole thing never happened. So now this timeline that I'm talking to you now on could be already. You could be more than 37 now. I'm guessing you could be 38 now, aren't you? I mean, I'm 47.
Now? Oh, yeah. I'm 51.
You're 51, right?
Yeah.
So you're actually, if we were to, you're actually 71. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I have that many years of experience, but on this timeline, I am 51.
Yeah, but if we stick the other timeline on top, which this body experienced, or this consciousness, then you're 71.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, and they can take certain assets out. The way these people work, they're basically, it's like Space Force in the year 2030. You know, they're able to travel. If they have a problem, there's no such thing as, you know, I wish we had this scientist back in the 50s. He had this certain mind that would have been able to fix this. They're like, oh, go grab him. They approach him back in the 50s, bring him into this other time reference, which is in the future, to work on this war and this big problem. They solve the problem, and then they mind wipe them and they put them back.
So were you able to leave?
Anyone in history is an asset.
Yeah.
Possible asset.
So were you able to leave? Let's say 10 years into it, you would have said, I had enough. I want to go.
No.
But what if you do? What if you run?
There's no way. I was completely, it was like being in a deep underground base. If you're a prisoner there, forced to work there, you're not going to run. I mean, you're in a contained environment, you know, in your time reference. There's only thing you can do is serve and get through it, or get in trouble and end up, you know, being killed, and then, you know, you disappear.
I see. Now, didn't they wipe your memory when they reinserted you at the age of 17?
Yes.
So how can you remember it?
And well, there's about 3 to 5% of people that the memories start coming back in chunks, and it's usually intuitive empaths because they're more connected to their higher self in these Akashic records, and it starts coming back in little bits and pieces, and then it takes years for all these little bits and pieces to become kind of contiguous, to fill in the gaps. And I had mostly just the gaps, and I had an eye injury where my little boy had accidentally jabbed me in the eye and detached my retina. And I went in, and the doctor looked at my eye, and he's like, you know, it took him 3 surgeries to fix it. They said that my retina looked like a canned tomato. They said my eye looked basically the same as what they had been taught as astronaut's eye, but they couldn't even consider that. You know, why would they? But they mentioned that to me and my wife. And after the surgery, the first shot they injected in my eye, it caused this traumatic recall that made everything started to connect. And it was very confusing and overwhelming. And my wife had no idea what was going on. You know, I had been blinded, you know, that was traumatic, and it was being fixed by the surgeons, but it was an amazing full recall.
Unbelievable. And why did they not kill you?
Why did who not kill me?
Well, why are you not killed now for telling all this stuff?
Well, I mean, think about it. If I had come out and I had told all of these amazing stories and then I died, well, everyone in the conspiracy community would be on top of it even more. What these people do is they don't necessarily kill people. Their best tool is discrediting and attacking and chipping away. They control, you know, the narrative. They control media. They control the internet. They can control perception.
Did they do that? Did they do what you just said to you?
Absolutely.
What did they do?
Different cyber stalking groups popped up. They started organizing. Actually have a federal RICO civil suit against a bunch of them right now, because I'm fighting back, and it's been very organized. Ufology, the whole disclosure movement, most people don't know, was started by the Rockefellers.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody connected to the Rockefellers are like royalty in ufology. And all of those people, once they saw I wasn't going to stick to the narrative that the Rockefellers were trying to push, they all, joined in on actually with some of these cyber stalkers. It's a pretty big mess, but a lot is getting exposed through my lawsuits.
I see. Okay, that's very interesting. And what are you trying to achieve? So why? I mean, I'm guessing that other abductee or members of this program who were reinserted at an early age after having served for 20 years or whatever still don't remember. They just live normal lives and they have no idea that they're actually 20 years older than what they are. And it's only you and a few others who actually get the memory back and get this total recall. And you are, and out of them, you are the minority that actually decided to speak out. Why? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, what I'm trying to achieve is the experience I had with these higher dimensional density beings had a huge impact on me. If I was just some guy with some total BS story that I didn't believe myself, there's no way I would have been able to last nearly 6 years of all of this stuff I described earlier. I'm sorry, I got off.
Yeah, what are you trying to achieve here?
What I'm trying to achieve is the stuff that I was shown, this sort of crazy end times sort of thing, that's something that the masses are being kept ignorant of on purpose. And I'm trying to put information out there that will seed the consciousness in a way that people will start preparing, to prepare themselves, for what's coming, and and get ready.
Otherwise, okay. So you're trying to warn the public now. So basically, when you saw these high density beings back then, between the age of 17 and 37.
No, I didn't. That wasn't till around 2011 that they started introducing themselves. To me.
So it's nothing to do with these 20 years. So why are you talking about that and about the space program? Are you trying to warn people to be careful that they're not drafted against their will into this program, or what?
No, during that time period was also when I had the eye injury, and these beings started appearing just before that in dreams, and then after the eye injury. An ET group came and had worked with me because I was almost suicidal with all of these memories that didn't make sense. Your consciousness has one, I've lived this many years, so I have this memory, and this memory. When you have all these other memories, your consciousness doesn't have the time reference. And it
sounds crazy.
So I was going through, quite a bit, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then they sent this group down that helped get the memories not only contiguous again fully, but to help remove a lot of my emotional reaction to the memories, to where I could process them and talk about them without being a mess.
I see. So just
sort of a process. And then these higher density beings came in, and then they were like, listen, this is what's about to occur. At the end of every time, we approach humans in dreams by the thousands, and we try to impart this information to them to seed it into the consciousness. And this is a part of that process.
I see. So basically, what you are talking about now and what you're trying to warn humanity about doesn't really have anything to do with the 20 years that you were drafted into that program. It's just, the program just shows that you are the kind of person that would be contacted by ETs, because that's why the government took you to this program. But regardless of that, afterwards, when you came out of it, you were contacted by other kind of aliens or with a different agenda, and that's what you're serving now, or that's what you're advocating at the moment, which has nothing really to do with the 20 years, the unknown 20 years. Okay, now I get it.
Yes.
Right. I see. So you're just telling us about, so why are you telling us about the space program? Are you just telling us, like you were on holiday in Spain, you happen to be 20 years in that program? There's nothing wrong with it.
No, it's humanity is so complacent right now. They have no idea that we have a Star Trek infrastructure in outer space that just a small breakaway civilization group gets to use.
Yeah.
That these people can almost live forever with the technologies I've described and live well. And they do not want humanity knowing about any of it, on this little prison planet. What we need to do is, as we find out more and more about these technologies that we really do have and that we've reversed engineered, people are going to want to know, why the hell can't we have access to it? And people are going to start demanding access to technologies that can improve our quality of life by thousands of % what they are now.
Yeah, I've heard I've interviewed somebody here about the space program, and he said exactly that the ruling elite or whatever, they have these underground tunnels with the amazing technology, with trains and everything, and they have medical stuff that's like, hundreds of years in the future, and that now basically Trump is what he did. He actually declared the space program as like a war zone. So now a lot of money has to go into it, and that's going to force those elites to kind of disclose, I don't know, something manipulative like that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
and I know that what he did was an attempt to get this technology out, because also he signed an executive order when he was first inaugurated that stated that the Department of Energy had to start releasing technologies. They have over 5,000 patents that are top secret, from everyone. And he was trying to release those. So I think he was trying to get some of the technologies that he knew about down to the people and release to the people, which is these technologies would destroy the energy, all the energy corporations would collapse. And most people don't realize that pharmaceutical companies are more powerful and more vicious than the energy companies. And they would be out of business overnight. Every disease has its own bioneural frequency. And you got a detector, it's popping up. Cancer is popping up here. And then they've got a different frequency that causes they called it like a null wave or something that basically turns off the frequency of the disease. There's no disease that they cannot heal us from, including aging. Aging is a byproduct of our living in our solar system. The sun is what's causing us to age.
Okay, and they can counteract it. So we could live forever?
Almost, yeah.
That's a long time. Okay. Yeah. I see. Now, what about the blue aliens? What's your connection?
Blue aliens? Yeah, the blue avians.
Avians, yeah. It actually says avians, but I thought it was a spelling mistake. So I said aliens, but it's avians. What on earth is an avian?
They claim to be connected to the Ra consciousness that brought the law of one and actually visited the ancient Egyptians and had brought them a idea of oneness and all of that. And then it got turned into all of these cults after they left. Some of the reasons they are kind of connected with us karmically, we have to kind of grow spiritually a little bit because they're connected with us karmically in that regard too. They've been connected in the past and given us information that actually got misused and caused problems. And even though they brought it here with good intentions, that karmically tied them to us in certain ways.
What was that information?
Well, it was the law of oneness.
Mm-hmm.
They brought that to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians then turned that into the cult of Ra, and then it turned into all sorts of crazy. It got taken over by reptilian factions, which is what happens quite a bit. Is negative ETs will come in. If a person's been contacted by a positive being, sometimes those positive beings will impart information to you and then move on. And then the negative beings will come in and pretend to be them, and
So
act real.
it's not the fault of the avians because they had good intentions, from what I understand.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by fault. I mean, karmically, they're tied to us in a way that they're trying to fix.
No, fault. I mean, the end result was that it was misinterpreted. The knowledge of the law of one, and it was actually used against us and manipulated by the cults and all that. So the end result is bad. So one could say, well, I wish these avians never brought it in the first place, because look what it ended up being. So I could say, well, it's not really their fault because they had good intentions. They didn't plan for the reptilians to come in and screw it all up.
I guess you'd say that. Yeah.
So what? So they're not that clever after all, since you say that it's something that is common. So what? They just risked it. They were hoping that it won't happen. Or you could blame us. You could blame the humans. Because if the humans only didn't do X, Y, Z, or did do blah, 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 it wouldn't have happened. And it wouldn't have, the information would not have been distorted, and we would have been now in a much better place because we would have used it correctly. So we are to be blamed. I mean, we are the bad guys.
There's a little blame to go around everywhere. That's, how karma works. So, I mean, we are, a lot of people in the communities that I've been speaking to, they're like, when are the ETs going to come and save us? This sucks. And the ETs are sitting back. When are these dumbasses going to do something about their house? Yep. It's horrible, And we've become conditioned to give away our power. We're looking for God or for something to come down and save us. Instead, we're supposed to be down here doing it.
We're waiting for Trump and QAnon to save us.
They're waiting for all of us to wake up, and instead of sitting back being keyboard warriors, to kind of get out in the streets and put some emotional energy and thought energy is great, but for it to have a real effect in this consensus reality we have, it takes action, and people have to get out and act.
And what do you think? Where do you think we are? I mean, it doesn't seem like the majority are anywhere near doing what you just said.
They're completely conditioned by, the mass media.
Yep.
The television was the best thing that ever happened to the intelligence agencies.
Oh, yeah.
They were able to, they call it programming for a reason. They can completely control your perception.
It's the strongest drug ever. It's a super drug. It's even more than that. It's like a next level shit drug.
You get 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people together, and then they're told that that's reality. Well, this is a consensus reality. That becomes reality, and that's how they control and manipulate us. And if we start coming together too much, let's start calling everybody a racist. Let's start calling everybody a homophobe. Let's start calling everybody this. And then it causes people to pull back and divide and get into this agitated state. And people, out of anger and fear, never make a rational decision.
And what you just described is a perfect example why the alien story is the most plausible one. I mean, why would humans do this? Why on earth would one human do this to another? There's no, it has to be aliens, manipulating the whole thing. At least that's what I feel comfortable believing. And so what are we going to do? It doesn't look good. Or maybe, more
and more people are waking up. But like I said, it's going to take people getting out of their comfort zones, getting out, talking with other people, telling them about this type of information that you cover, that I talk about. Get out in the streets if they see things, they see their rights taken away, if they're being forced to take, this experimental injection, all of these different things. Get out and protest. Get out and talk about it. Don't just sit there and sit back anonymously, on your keypad, on your keyboard, or sit there and say, well, I will meditate that humanity will wake up. That's great. Action is needed. So that's
okay.
That's what I'm doing. What I'm doing is action. I'm trying to bring this stuff to the mass consciousness. I've got a pretty big TV show coming out here soon on a major platform. I thought I could announce it today, but not yet. And we have a scripted series coming out that's going to be based on all of this. That's going to seed all of this into the consciousness of humanity. And I'm doing my part. And everybody needs to do their part. Artists out there, songwriters, all of these different creative types of people. You need to find a way to push your mission out of here and out here right now, because right now the world's a mess and it needs your influence.
Definitely. So what kind of other encounters did you have with extraterrestrials?
Well, there were numerous. Like I said, the first 10 months was very shocking. The ship, the research vessel I was going to be assigned to.
Is that in the 20 years or after?
Yeah, in the 20 years. In the 20 years. The captain of the vessel I was going to be assigned to didn't want me there because he said they had someone similar to me there. And for the first year, the kid was just crying and missing home. And it was distraction. So they sent me to this other program where they needed intuitive empaths, and it was called the Intruder, Intercept, and Interrogation Program. And they were basically like the Men in Black. They were grabbing ETs that were blending in on Earth. Some of them were studying us. Some of them were here taking natural resources, but they were appearing as human. And they would go down and grab these beings and interrogate them on this base on the backside of the moon. And then there would be ET ships that would come in cloaked that they were able to intercept sometimes. And they would intercept those ships and take the crews to this base and then interrogate them. If they didn't have diplomatic relations with that ET group before, they would then establish trade relations and diplomatic relations with that group. Or if they thought the people were up to no good that were visiting us, they would just tell them not to come back. And they would either keep them in prison and tell their home planet not to send anyone else, or they would negotiate something.
And what was your role? What did you do?
I was an intuitive empath. I sat there with two other intuitive empaths.
Empath?
Intuitive empath.
Those are people. Empathetic?
Empath means you can read other people's or beings' emotions. The intuitive part meant that we knew what was going to happen before. It was a psychic component.
So that's like, what's her name? Troy on Star Trek.
Yeah, similar.
Counselor Troy. Yeah,
but not quite the same capacity. So we would sit there and they would interrogate these ETs.
And they are the humans.
The humans, yeah, in the space program, they would interrogate these ETs, and we would have to sit there with these pads communicating back to the person doing the interrogation whether they were being truthful or not, what their emotional state was, and that sort of thing. So
are you that now? Are you still an empath?
I am an intuitive empath, but not to the degree I was in the programs. They give you these injections that overclock your neurology and enhance these abilities. It's like a genetic enhancement that they do, but you have to be on the inoculation on a regular basis.
Now I think I understand. So basically you're saying that in the world there are the government, let's talk about America. So America tries to identify these emotional empaths at an early age. So they do special tests at school, which are obviously probably they sell them whatever, a story that it's like IQ tests or whatever, but actually it's to identify them. And as early as 6 years old, all across America, they're able to identify those kids because everybody has to take the test. And once they do to them what they did to you. And then they eliminate their abilities to be that and just chuck them back into society. So there are no empaths at that level at your age because they're all being used already or are being used now in the program.
No, we are empaths. We're intuitive empaths. We still have those natural abilities that they had originally sought out. But let's say that if they have a scale of intuitive empath that goes up to 10, if naturally, most people could be like a 0.5, but a small percentage of people are going to be a 3 a 5 or even an 8. And that is, pretty amazing on this scale.
So they only want the best. So I see. So they only take the best.
And then the injections they give you enhance your genetics, and it is bad for you later in life, but it overclocks your neurology to where you can process more faster, because you have to process more quicker with these intuitive abilities. You have more information coming in.
Yeah.
And if, so these inoculations that they give you do all of that. So it knocks you up from like a 3 to a 10.
Okay, so my point is now, okay, so let's put it this way. So let's say at any given time, they need 1,000 empaths, in the program. They don't need more than 1,000. That's capacity. And at this moment, the exams show that there are 15,000 across the USA. So they will only pick the best one, the best 1,000, and take them into the program. And the other 14,000 just going to let them loose, to carry on with their lives.
And also it has to do with the kid's temperament and all of that. They like to choose children from sort of rough families, to where, like there is a lot of abuse or anger issues in the families, to where the kids were used to getting slapped around or screamed at. Because you take a kid from like a Ward and June Cleaver 1950s family and you put them in that situation, they're just going to collapse emotionally. Children that have been in rough households, they have already built up this strength or brokenness, controlled brokenness, that these people. So there's a lot more than just having the ability that goes in. You have to have a certain personality type, disposition, and
fine. So it's easy to narrow it down to 1,000, and then they take those kids who are high on the scale and from the right rough family, and they just use them. But the rest, they don't need the rest for this program.
Correct.
And they don't mind that they, as in the government, they don't mind that there's 15 or 20,000 other empaths out there living their lives. They just don't need them. They have no interest in them.
Right.
So they use the ones that they pick, and then they just reinsert them and drug them so that they kind of forget everything or whatever. And they just use them. Okay, now I understand. It's like, wow, horrible. Okay, yeah. So now it's clear, finally. So when and where you were drafted to the secret space program, and what does it include? Well, we just spoke about it in detail. Don't need to go back into that. So please tell us about the special report on UFOs that is out this month. I remember they were talking about it, that in May or in June, we're going to tell you about this new information, and now it's out, isn't it?
Yeah, but we just found out that, we have the 9-page report that was released, and then there is a huge classified report that was given to Congress. And now it's time for some of that stuff to start leaking out, which I think it will. But the elements of the DoD, Secretary of Defense, were not happy with the 9-pager, and they have ordered them to come out with more information. So there'll be more coming out. But that first 9 pages was a total stinker. We had 16 intelligence agencies that were pulling this information together. All of them, except for the DIA, wanted to go against any alien type of mention at all. The DIA wanted to say, yes, we need to tell people this could be ET, at least. And the other agencies just wanted to keep it all locked down. But the DIA was allowed to get a little bit more in there, but it was basically a big nothing burger, like most of the UFO community was expecting, the 9-pager.
I'm not surprised. And have you heard of Professor Eshed, the Israeli guy?
Yeah. Through Dr. Saleh. I've heard Dr. Saleh.
Yeah.
mentioned.
So Saleh is the doctor who was on the show here, the one I mentioned, who told me about the Trump and all that. So basically, Eshed. There was a huge publication in an Israeli newspaper, him disclosing, that the governments are talking to the Galactic Federation and all that. Seems like his disclosure is even more than this 9-pager.
It absolutely is. Dr. Saleh and I on my YouTube channel did a whole video on that disclosure. That was a pretty big deal, but, it's just like every ET or video of UAPs that has come out, it just comes out to a big so what. Humanity's been so conditioned that UFOs is conspiracy theory, baloney, that it's affected the consciousness in a way to where now everyone's just so divorced from it that, it just made, I was kind of shocked at how little of an impact some of these disclosures, like the videos and the recordings of the pilots, Navy pilots that had observed them. I thought that would get a little bit more, reaction from normal people, but there's nothing.
I think it depends on how much the media was pushing it. Were they?
Some were here in the States. There were some on like Fox and other places that were playing the stories a bit, and they were like quite a bit, and they were like shocked, and they were even asking, why isn't this a big deal? Why isn't everyone talking about this? Still nothing.
Maybe people are too busy thinking about imaginary diseases and things like that, and injections and experiments and all that, and maybe getting a job and trying to make ends meet, with the collapse of the economy and the loss of jobs and all that. But anyway, that's a different story, another crazy story.
Come to think about it, wouldn't that be the best time to do disclosures? Is when everyone is focused on this. I mean, right now, what we've been going through for the last year and a half is World War III. This World War III has been a stealth war for the first part of it. It's the weirdest war in human history, what we're seeing play out. But make no mistake, this is a world war.
Yeah. So
it's
what is
underway.
There's also a spiritual warfare that's going on. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a spiritual component. There's right now, as these cosmic energies are increasing, the ones that I spoke about earlier, it is causing kind of a thinness in the veil between the spiritual world and this world. And a lot of people that have kind of a negative spin or vibe in life, you see them, they're exposing themselves. They can't help but show what they are. Well, the people that are positive, have been doing the inner work and trying to grow spiritually, you're seeing a lot of those people become more blissful and becoming to have more understanding about what's going on around them, and slowly starting to feel more connected with those around them. That's how people that have done the work and are ready for this event to happen, that's how they're going to progress through this event. And then the negative people are just going to burn up.
This event, do you mean the the what?
The solar event.
That event. Okay. Yeah, just checking that I was referring to the same one. Okay. So spiritual warfare is something that we've been going through as well. And what is the change that we are witnessing, especially in the last year?
I think we're seeing the mass consciousness come back into a little bit more into connection. People are starting to connect in a way that they don't understand. You can see through people, the good and the bad, more than any other time. All the bad tricks that the cabal or these control people have used, they're not working anymore. We're seeing through them. So this is the time of the great revealing and the time of the great awakening. And I think this great awakening just grows before this solar event that I spoke about. And right now, depending, if you've dealt with a lot of your traumas and you don't have a real negative spin spiritually, if you've been dealing with those things, you have to start noticing, that, your connection with other people is growing, while at the same time, you notice everyone going crazy, that, this end time madness is going to affect people that haven't dealt with their issues in a way. It's causing people just to go crazy. I mean, you're not even going to want to go to the grocery store, maybe a few years from now. It's just going to get worse and worse from what I've been shown. But that's a good reason to surround yourself with high vibe people as much as possible, because y'all are going to feed off of each other and grow off of each other right now. And I think a lot of higher vibe people are kind of coming together right now, because on some level, they feel something's happening, something's about to happen, even though they may not know exactly what it may be, if it is a solar event or whatever. But they feel something's happening, something's changing.
Yeah, I agree. And, the age of Aquarius and all that, many aliens are channeling information that all this negativity is actually just a step in the right direction of salvation of humanity and embracing the light and the new energies and all that. And what you just said is so true, because because of this situation, people say, well, screw this, I'm leaving, I'm going to the mountains, and I'm going to start a community with like-minded people, we're going to grow our own food, and live our own life, and away from, from the hustle and bustle and the craziness of the big cities that are, the TV watchers and believers, the sheep and all that. So really they are going to go down the drain, watching TV, injecting themselves to oblivion, and eating engineered food and all that. And we on the mountain are going to have a laugh. You know what I mean? We won't need to go to the grocery shop, because we are going to have our own grocery shop growing in our gardens. You know what I mean? We're going to sing songs around the fire, which is way better than going clubbing or going to a fancy restaurant, downtown New York or Tel Aviv. So one bunch of people could be living in paradise, while the other ones are living in hell and eventually frying.
Well, remember, this is a consensus reality. If you get together with a lot of other people, create a whole new reality and a different way of living and a way of treating your children and all of that, well, you're unplugging from this contrived reality that mass media is perpetuating, and that religions are, it's all this controlled giant alternate reality. It's really an alternate reality than what should be happening on this planet. Yeah. It's not real reality. It's not what should be.
False reality.
What these groups are doing, breaking away and creating their own communities, like we described, that is what reality should be. And we're going to co-create it together.
Yeah, because it's going to bleed back out into them, or suck them into us, to our communities as well. I don't know about us and them, but we're all together in this. So, right, how interesting, how lovely and wonderful. So, we have covered pretty much everything we planned. Is there anything else we forgot or we missed?
No, if anyone wants to know more about what I'm talking about, they can go to my CoreyGoode.com, CoreyGoode.com, and they can see all the projects that I'm working on that I mentioned. Of course. And also a little bit more meat to what we discussed, when it comes to this solar event and the spiritual stuff around it. There's a lot more that I cover.
And the links are obviously going to be, stated underneath the interview, all the links that you've sent us. So everyone is welcome to obviously visit those links and educate themselves further. So, wow, what can I say? I've enjoyed every moment of this interview. I had a lovely time talking to you. I could go on talking to you for hours. So all I have left is to say thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation. And I watched your interview with Dr. Sala. It was very well done. And I like the work that you're doing. And I'm sure we'll work together in the future.
Definitely. And I just remembered, at the end of every interview, we get to the dramatic part where you are asked to please address your fellow humans, brothers and sisters around the world, with a request, a demand, or a suggestion, or any kind of message you wish to impart to them. So, Corey Goode, the stage is yours. Your brothers and sisters are listening. Go ahead, please.
All right. Right now, you see everyone being pushed into their own narcissistic bubbles because of these energies. They're being forced to deal with their own crap. Right now, if you consider yourself a spiritual person, stay out of other people's business. Don't get caught up in their karmic vortex. Focus, as selfish as it sounds, focus on you. Go inside, work on the traumas and all of the different issues that you have, distortions, and get those worked out before this event comes, and you're going to have a lot easier time.
Fabulous. So, Corey Goode, good luck with everything, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. And to our lovely viewers, what can I say? Aliens exist. Careful not to be abducted by them or by your government. Be vigilant. Break away from society. Make those lovely communities somewhere high up, preferably. And thank you for watching, and see you in the next interview. Bye-bye now.